Just imagine 3 days' work in a single day, at half the price and double the corrosion protection performance. Think it's too good to be true? It's possible with Rust Grip. Rust Grip offers superior adhesion, flexibility, and abrasion and impact resistance. No pot life, no catalyzation, no two-part mixing. Rust Grip is not a sacrificial rust inhibitor such as a zinc-enriched primer that will wear out over time, but in fact a permanent rust-proofing, which is why it is a certified biohazard encapsulator. Rust Grip has also passed 15,000 hours of salt spray testing, which equals 30 years to marine specifications, and consequently has achieved DNV certification. Rust Grip was considered a paradigm shift and rated number 1 by the Society of Petroleum Engineers in a long-term lab and field study by Chevron and Workstrings International. It was tested against 18 different coatings on drill pipes, which are the toughest environments anyone can ever imagine. When metal is produced in a new state, it has a very thin oil coating that temporarily protects the substrate. Once exposed to the environment, this oil coating is quickly removed and the environmental factors start to attack and oxidize the metal. Also, most metal surfaces have imperfections, which may include pitting, cracking, and machine marking. Flash rust begins to build on the unprotected or old surface, and then becomes the more aggressive pack rust, while mill scale develops in the steel production process. The corrosion weakens the integrity of the metal and needs to be addressed urgently. Many corrosion coatings in the market today are topical coatings, like glue. They do not penetrate the surface without a special solvent carrier to carry the body of the coating into the pores. Traditional zinc coatings specify a white blast to prepare the surface to a clean white metal, because zinc cannot also be applied over rust of any kind. It is seldom that the zinc primer is applied immediately after the white blast, though. Sometimes it can take just hours for a light surface of flash rust to develop, which is called blooming. When the zinc coating is applied on this bloomed surface, rust, the zinc, being self-sacrificing, begins to allow itself to rust as it is designed to do. There is rust on top of the metal surface, causing rusting again under the entire system of a zinc primer, middle coat, and top coat, 3-part system, and later bubbles on the surface from the corrosion off-gassing. Oxidation and acid rain can also enter and set off corrosion even though the surface coating remains intact. Eventually the zinc coating breaks down and the corrosion is also pushing up from underneath. Within months or a couple of years the system is failing. Alternatively, you have Rust Grip, a single-coat aluminium nanoparticle protection coating which locks in corrosion with minimal surface preparation. Firstly, in most cases you need a minimum and simple NACE 4 blast or can use hand tools and rust can be present. Rust Grip is low viscosity and applied at 100 microns per coat, which initially wets the rusty surface, then penetrates into the rust and metals pores, and begins to anchor in while using the atmosphere to cure. With the solvent carrier, the polymer literally begins to swell, developing an interlocking network between the pores and the coating. The second coat of Rust Grip continues to fill in pinholes and any gaps missed and anchors to the first coat to completely block oxygen and moisture developing corrosion. The third coat anchors to the second and 100% encapsulates the corrosion and metal and hardens to 6,780 psi surface tensile strength, unlike any other coating. Rust Grip then stops corrosion dead in its tracks, keeps moisture and environmental contaminants out, and hardens like steel with over 20 years protection. Rust Grip also is tested and rated to encapsulate lead-based paint. In fact, up to 18 layers of lead-based paint have been tested with Rust Grip. Again, Rust Grip penetrates, encapsulates and anchors in with moisture curing to keep the lead-based paint stable in the environment. The same goes with asbestos encapsulation. Asbestos is able to be encapsulated to keep this and other biohazards stable either in their environment or for safe transportation. Rust Grip offers a simple solution for true encapsulation. A one-coat system that can be applied over a variety of surfaces that meets or exceeds stringent registrations, certifications, and testing is truly a paradigm shift that lasts over 20 years. We know you'll love the results. Visit for more information about Rust Grip, the world's best encapsulation coating.